Hey, what's up, everybody? Happy Halloween. It is Friday, October 31st, and we're going to jump in to another weekly recap. I don't have as many trades as last week. With Monday, I was out, so pretty light week overall. Had some good trades, some average trades, couple stops, and yeah, so not too bad in the week green, so that's good. But yeah, let's jump into it. So, first trade back was Tuesday. PayPal announced earnings, and looking at it, it was a big gap up. They had some good earnings, and there's some other news in there, I believe, with OpenAI. And we had a big gap up, and coming out of this consolidation again. Last time I did it, it rejected it, and then it eventually ended up rejecting this bounce up higher. It's just it can't hold prices higher in the higher 70s. Definitely a bunch of supply up there, and we're right back into this consolidation zone. So this trade was actually on this day. It was gapping higher. We'll dig into this a little bit, and I was buying as it was coming into the open. So we were getting a lot of weakness. I was looking for a flush to get long to play a bounce. It came in a little bit more than I was expecting, but I did add some into the flush lower here and was able to make some gains on the bounce back here before it kind of just trailed off and traded lower. So I started in the pre-market, got a little bounce back to the 10-day, trimmed some off, the selling continued, added a little bit more, and then it just kind of flatlined into the open where we got this sharp pull here. I wanted to give it a little room just because I felt, over the last 30, 40 minutes, we had a good sell down on this and wanted to see if it was going to set up for a little washout long. This candle popped below lows, reclaimed pretty quickly, and had a nice buyer step in. So I added to my position here with a little bit more size to bring my cost basis down. And we got a nice follow through bounce back into VWAP where I was trimming most off into this. And then once we hit the VWAP, I'll usually leave a trailer on, and anything over VWAP, I'll as a bonus. So got a little bit more out of it with some follow through from VWAP before it started rolling off into the afternoon. So it was a good trade. I usually, when I'm trading front side like this, I start pretty small, and then I can scale in as it's moving into my favor or moving against me. I can add a pyramid into it. So if I start with like 10% here, 20%, then I'll get to like half a position. And then when it really gets to a spot that I like, I can really get to like a full position, which will help scale down my cost basis and, set me up for a better for a bounce. Because if I didn't add here, my cost basis was still, up in the 76s. So I would have been basically taking profits at break even here. So this was a good add here. It kind of changed the whole trade for me. And this is what I recommend. I know Mike talks about this too. If you're trading the front side of a move, and what I mean by the front side is as it's moving against you, like this is the front side, then I added on a turn here. So this would be the front side here. This would be the turn. This would be technically the back side, but we still got some more follow through. It's pyramid into your positions. Don't start with, half a position and then add a half again. It's going to be harder to scale down if you're adding too much size too soon. So be mindful of that when you're trading these and just understand what you're doing and how the trade could potentially play out. All right, so this was PayPal. Ended up getting a nice bounce out of the open. And what I was doing here after this ad, if this would have broke lows again, I would have just cut the position and ate the L, but ended up getting the bounce. So that worked out nicely. All right, so that was PayPal. That was the first trade of the week for me. Next one, this was Lucid. They had some news, I believe, and it got a nice run up, and it got really extended very quickly. We had some big price acceleration, these candles wide and loose, lots of volume coming in. And then we had this candle that popped and then failed over the previous candle's highs. And you could just tell on the tape sellers were jumping in on this. So I got in as soon as this started to reject new highs and got some quick follow through. And then it kind of chopped around. I could have added on this rejection candle here, but I wasn't real confident with it given the news. So I didn't get too aggressive on the ads, but obviously it ended up working out really well. And I took some more covers through 19, and it ended up fading all the way back to VWAP and some. And if I remember correctly, let's see, I believe it, yeah, ended up giving up the entire move. So this is looking at the 5 minute. We got this huge move, and then it gave it all back and some right back to the unaffected price. So it's hard to anticipate that or expect that. Usually that doesn't happen, but it ended up doing it on this one. So if you would have held, you would have been able to get some profits off, sub 18. But obviously, when I'm taking these trades, VWAP is my ultimate goal, and anything past that is a bonus. So ended up being a nice trade, pretty stress-free for the most part. Stop would have been at the high of this candle after I got in. All right, so that was Lucid. It was on the scanners. Was talking about it in the room, and just a nice reversal play on a big pop. So that was Lucid. Next was NVIDIA. So NVIDIA had, I don't know if they had a conference or some kind of, the CEO was speaking, and it was just all kinds of deals coming out, and buying got real crazy on it. Made this big move here, and I was trading on this day. So we get what, 1, 2, 3, 4 days. We're getting gap days every day. Get a huge wide range candle here with a monster gap following it the next day. I felt that this was a high probability short. It did end up bouncing around quite a bit first before giving us the rollover. So I actually started this right before the open with the short, and it gave me a little bit of a move in my favor where I took some covers. And then we got a strong bounce, and I had about a half a position, and I was just kind of waiting this out to see what this was going to do, because I just felt like this wasn't going to be able to sustain these higher prices given the move it's had over the previous week. So I let the price action play out, and this was where I was kind of like, all right, I'm getting ready to cut this. We're breaking through highs again. I've got a little bit more volume coming in on it, and then it rejected pretty hard. This is oftentimes a good clue when you're making new highs and it rejects it pretty sharply. In hindsight, I probably should have been adding up here. I just wasn't totally comfortable with this. NVIDIA, it's the leading name. It's a tough one to short, right? So I waited for a little bit more confirmation and got a short. Once we got back below VWAP, we had held below for a couple candles. So I was like, all right, this is looking a little bit better. I'll add to my position and see if I can hold and make another leg. What it ended up doing is getting another bounce back and testing this previous pivot. And what I was going to do was high day was definitely my stop now at this point after adding back. And it ended up rejecting and making a nice move lower back below VWAP. And then we just kind of grinded through where I took some more covers off down in like the 208 area. And then it just started holding lower here where it ended up rolling. You can see this candle here pop back up and failed really hard. That was a good signal there. That could have been another add as well. And then we got another leg into like the low a day where I was covering a bunch, and then got a follow through leg, covered some more, and then we just had this nice lower volume kind of grindy move back higher where we moved. I believe this was the Fed day too, if I remember correctly, and then we ended up getting a break through this trend line that was very defined, right? How many times? 1, 2, 3, 4, about 5 or 6 times it tested this trend line, finally broke through, added back to my position, kind of chopped around, and then we got the big rug pull where I was covering into the 206s and 205s for most of my position. And then for the trailer, we obviously bounced back up, rebid at a low a day, and then started trending higher. And I wasn't planning on pressing this too much harder. I was down to a trailer. We started reclaiming these levels, and so I just cut the position as it moved against me. And ended up working out really well. I had to sit through some heat up here, but given, like I said, how far the stock had come in such a short amount of time, I was pretty confident we would get some kind of pull throughout the day, and we ended up getting that and worked out nicely for a pretty solid win on that day. So that was NVIDIA, but yeah, this is stuff I always look for, just big moves, multiple gap days, and then you get a big extension candle with an even bigger gap up day following it. More times than not, this is going to be a good reversal at some point, so I wanted to stick with it and see if it would work out like it did. All right, so that was NVIDIA. Next was CMBM. This was a tough one. It's a parabolic short. Let's see here. So you can see on the daily, it's just an insane move. Okay, so we have a huge gap up, big wide range candle, came in, got a gap up, monster gap higher, and this is where I was really interested in. It's so hard for stocks to hold prices like this. I mean, this thing went up a few 100% or more. I think it was yeah, I mean, this went up multiple hundreds of percent in just a couple days. Super hard for prices to hold that. So when I see this kind of stuff, I'm always shopping for a short. And obviously, the morning it was very choppy. So basically, what I was looking for was some kind of clue of a rejection or some kind of confirmation that this was going to go lower. And so we were chopping around. We got this push here in the VWAP that failed pretty hard. And I was like, all right, this looks good. This looks like it wants to go to low a day. Started my short. Obviously, we got rebitted back up in the VWAP. I ended up taking a stop. I had some good size on it. I didn't want this to run back through high day and then squeeze higher on me. So I bailed on it. And I just kept trying it, and it kept getting rebitted. And I tried again here as we were failing back below VWAP again. Got rebitted again, pushed highs days, and I was like, all right, I'm going to stop out at high day on this because this could, really open up if I wanted to, test pre-market highs and really take off. I didn't want to be holding it. So I bailed on it again. So I was 3 losses, 4 losses on it. And then we got another hard rejection. And normally I wouldn't try this many times, but given how extended this was on the daily and how big the gap was and the move, there's just so much EV to the downside that I wanted to be in the trade if it did work out. You got to position yourself when you have a strong bias in a setup that's really in your favor. You got to make sure you're in it if it's going to start working. So I was giving it another try here versus high day. I didn't have full size, but I wanted to be involved in case it did start working. We did end up getting this sharp leg lower where I started covering just a little bit off, and it gave me some nice consolidation where I could really add into it. And then we got a nice leg lower again. I was covering into that. It got rebitted pretty hard here. I was going to give it some room. I had a good cost basis. I think I was up in the 570s or so. So I was going to give it plenty of room. And it just started petering off, right? Look at the volume got real light through lunchtime. There just wasn't much action, and it just kind of grinded lower throughout the day where I was covering into it. I added a little bit here, just below 5, and it just continued lower throughout the rest of the day. And I believe it ended up breaking below 3. No, it didn't. I think the low of the day was 329. So had some really good covers off. Had an overfill here, so I was covering some shorts and I went long, so I had to sell those. But overall, it was a very frustrating trade, but ended up working out in the end. Was able to get a nice win on this one for CMBM. All right, so that was a parabolic short on this one. And then we had INTS. This was just one that hit the scanner. Not that clean of price action, but we did have multiple legs higher. Volume wasn't that great, but we did have these wide range candles and we were running into halts here. You can see we just kind of grinded and then we got accelerated and we ran into a halt, gapped up after it opened and made this push higher and failed super hard. And as soon as I saw it starting to fail, I started my short around 160 and it moved immediately in my favor. I think it halted a couple times on the downside here. It had really tight halt bands. You can see how tight they are. When stocks come from sub $1, they can have very tight halt bands. So they can be a little bit trickier that way, but you still want to be involved if these are working. I wouldn't now if I got short here and this was running up into a halt, I won't hold my positions into a halt up. I'd rather bail and then re-enter if I need to. Just because I can't manage risk once I'm in a halt and you don't know if it's going to gap higher or what's going to happen. So, but didn't have to worry about that on this one. It worked in my favor immediately, was covering into the move and got some really good follow through on this where I was covering most in this area. And then it just started rebetting and holding a little bit higher. And so I took my trailer off, around 125. So ended up working out well. That was INTS. You can see on the daily these huge moves oftentimes can provide great short opportunities. So I'm always looking for these, always watching the scanners for these types of moves. All right, so that was INTS. Apple, that was this morning. I really didn't have much I was super excited about this morning. I felt like the markets needed to come in, even though they were gapping up. And so it was hard for me to really want to be aggressively long. I know we were watching Amazon, which actually ended up coming in today. This was one of my ideas, was getting long on this. And, you know, the market was just really weak out of the gate. So I was a little bit hesitant to get long anything. But Apple had just this really nice clean move lower that was getting a bit extended. You know, it had 4, 5, 6 candles lower. So once we started breaking below 270 is when I was really starting to get interested, because we were running into a bunch of traffic. If we step back, let's see, maybe a 30-minute. We had this leg lower here, and we were running into a bunch of support. So once we started breaking below 270, I was like, all right, I'm going to start some here. And I had bids out below, and I think down to 268 in case this wanted to make another leg, and I could have added to my position. That didn't end up happening. We ended up bouncing, so I started trimming into the position, and ended up stopping when it came back to my break even. My idea, I wasn't trying to play this for like a bounce back to high day or anything. This was just, I was just looking for a bounce play to scalp some of the position off of it. If we would have gotten the VWAP, I probably would have taken most off there, but I don't think we ended up getting that until later in the day after I stopped out. So just a bounce play that was coming. You know, this is a steep sell-off for a big name right into a bunch of support. So I just wanted to get involved with it in case we did get a bounce like we did. So it ended up working out well. So yeah, that was Apple. Just an easy money little bounce play there. And what else do we have today? I think I just traded one other. Yeah, HKD. This was just this is a China name, small cap. This thing's like a known rigger, very tough trader. It was starting to get accelerated. So we've had this huge gap up, and we started accelerating, had really good volume. I was like, this looks good. Maybe we can get a run back to VWAP. And so I started my short here. I added here, and then it popped through high day. I was like, all right, if this holds high day and makes another push, I'm going to get out, but ended up rejecting pretty hard. So I was like, all right, maybe this is going to be a failed breakout through highs. And I added again, looking for the move back below 4. And it was just really strong. There's bids all through right on the 10-day, and it ended up popping up through this little 460 area that was a clear pivot. So I bailed on the position there and ended up squeezing a bit higher after this. The reason I bailed here is because on these names like this, if you wait for high day, sometimes it can be, you can get a ton of slippage, right? Like if you're trying to get out here, it pops through there and then it rips another 20, 30 cents very quickly. You could be eating a big loss really, really fast. So sometimes I'll front run my stops if it's just not working out. And I didn't like the tape. It just didn't feel right. There was still a ton of volume on it. So I just took the loss and moved on. It ended up failing later in the day, but it was a very tricky trade for sure. Very choppy, very back and forth. It was not an easy. Like they gave a look here that it was going to come in, and then they rebid it again. I think it's a little bit easier to see on the 2-minute here. Yeah. So this looked like it was going to fail. It's a big rejection here. Had some decent volume on it, and they rebid it again through high day before failing and bringing it lower, and just making it very tough to get into a position here and feel comfortable. But then we ended up getting the flush and had a really nice move lower that I was not involved with. I would have been really frustrated, giving up my day if I would have kept trying this and just getting stopped out over and over. So that was HKD, tough trader. I think that was my last trade this week. I did buy some, what else do we have? Oh, I did buy some USO calls. There's just chatter going around with the potential for U.S. strikes on Venezuela. If that happens, we could likely see a big pop in oil. So I bought some calls for November, the 21st expirations, just in case this once, you know, if something happens and oil ends up spiking real hard, I'll have my little lotto call play to try and capitalize on it. So we'll see what it does and how this plays out if it does. But in either way, this does look like a good setup for a long anyways. We got this big pop back above the 10 and 20 day, consolidating right on it. The 10's starting to cross above the 20 day, and we're holding above. So maybe we'll get a nice long out of it regardless if we do strikes or not. So I'll hold on to that position. I'm not going to manage it. It either hits or it doesn't. So we'll keep tabs on that going forward over the coming weeks. As far as next week and going further out, UNH I think looks really good. Obviously we had the earnings gap up, kind of failed, and now we've had a 4-day move lower. If we come in Monday, and this is lower, especially down in like the 320 area where we got some support, I'd be interested in buying this for a bounce back play, either for cash flow and for a swing. So that's going to be on my radar coming into Monday. We'll see how that looks. That will be on my radar to get long for sure. And then Netflix. Nothing for me on it yet, but I know this split's probably going to be a very active day for it. It's going to bring in a lot of new traders. It's going to be trading a 10 for 1. So this I want to keep on my radar. I think that's going to be a good play, maybe coming into the split and after the split. I think we could see higher on this. So we'll keep that on the radar for sure. But that's a couple weeks away. I think the 17th is the 17th. So we'll keep tabs on that. I think that could be a good play to keep tabs on. All right, well, I hope everyone has a safe and fun Halloween and has a good weekend, and rest up because we'll be back at it on Monday. All right, take care, everyone.